That's the illusion. So, it looks like we've just gone live. And I just want to check in and see, were we live before? Okay. So I thought we were live. We weren't live. Now we're live. Cool. Well, nice to see everyone in the comments. Great to have you here. We are doing a Q&A about the fundamental course, and it's the program I've been teaching, I think, for about the last 4 years, maybe more. And it's starting in September. It's an 8-month program for learning the Serratore healing method, and we're going to take some Q&A today about the system. And I've had some questions already in the comments, and I'm going to talk about some questions I really liked as well. Yeah. So sorry, guys. I thought we were live, and no, I was just talking to myself, which is really funny. Cool. So I'll start with just chatting about a couple of things that I wanted to mention, which is that essentially there was a question of what skills do I learn in the course, and there are the building block skills that I'm teaching, which we then apply into different areas, like themes, which are different ways of looking at the energy system and what's going on with us. So the big picture themes in the Serratore method are emotional wounding, past lives, where those woundings often really are coming from, the beings that are hooked into and amplifying those wounds, because we're in a sea of energy and consciousness full with lots of beings including humans, resonating with our stuff, and so it all gets entangled. That entanglement supports our issues. If you clear those entanglements, you clear those beings, the issues have less support, and it's easier to then process them. Soul retrieval, so the idea of there being parts of yourself that get traumatized and shut down or lost, and how to facilitate a healing around that, which begins to get us to work with soul and essence, and actually get awareness into our soul, which actually lives, some of it's outside our body for a long time. Not all of our soul comes into our body. It sits at sort of an 8th, 6th, 7th dimensional, well, more 7th and 8th dimensional level. And as we go deeper into our process, more of that soul light can really come through into our local form. And the soul is also asleep. We want to wake it up. That's something that really shocked me when Bonnie first told me that. I remember sending her an email going, do we want to merge with the soul or completely wake up or something? And she said, yeah, we want to wake up. The soul's actually asleep, and we want to wake up. It needs to wake up. So I was shocked to hear that, because I thought the soul was the bigger part of me that was who I really was on a deeper level, and that's true. But the soul's also in a subtle dream. It's subtly dreaming of all the lifetimes you've had, and it's subtly asleep to the divinity that it really is. So yeah, I remember that being a big one for me. So we get our awareness into the soul and work with that kind of energy and consciousness. The dark force stuff, which is typically caught up with the more challenging lifetimes that we've had at various places and times, and touches on working with negatively oriented beings and what that looks like in healing. Healer, heal thyself. So you're applying the work to yourself. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. Practitioner skills, so refining everything that we are doing and taking everything to a next level. That's the last module. ETs, working with aliens, alien past lives, alien consciousness, and learning to recognize their energy, working with people that have incarnated predominantly from other planets and the unique issues that brings, and keep them as healing allies. There are certain alien beings that can facilitate enormous changes in consciousness and energy because of the evolution they've gone through. So very interesting stuff. And the first module, which is working with the light, which is really building a foundation to use the rest to explore those themes. And so the foundation that we're building is built up of 7 skills that I like to think about. So this is the sort of the mechanics of what you're doing with your energy and consciousness and awareness, so that you can facilitate healing. And they're skills that we will refine throughout the course. The first skill, and some of this seems basic, but it's not. It goes so deep. The first skill is feeling, being able to actually let go of the mind and really open to feeling what's going on inside of you, emotionally and physically. And that's a huge continuing theme for most of us, because we often live in our minds, our heads, and we want to be able to drop out of that and really open and surrender to feeling. It's an opening. If we do that, our wounding starts decompressing, starts coming up to be processed, and we start to be open to recognize things that aren't coming from the mind, but coming from a deeper place. So that's where the knowing actually arises from, is being able to surrender the mind and let go into feeling. If we also are shut down, we need to reawaken the sense of feeling. We often have repressed things. That's what I did. I got depression from as a very young age as a teenager. And for 10 years, I just shut everything down, and I couldn't feel anything below my neck. I sort of pushed it all down and tried to live as if everything was fine from the top of my mental tower. And eventually I couldn't do that. I couldn't even pretend anymore. And that's when I met Bonnie, and she helped me really work to release what was going on for me, and became a very powerful, and her teachings around surrendering to feeling became how I reversed that process and began bit by bit to let myself open to feeling again. And then my psychic senses opened up, and then that became a pathway for me to learn this work. So your psychic senses will open up more and more if you face your stuff, because that shutting down is affecting your psychic capacity too. So that's a skill, feeling. From another core skill we're working on is sensing. So that's the psychic perception. Feeling is something slightly different. If you can't, they're both important. Sensing is recognizing patterns of energy in other people and in the bigger environment, in the cosmos, in yourself. It's psychically picking up on stuff. So sensing is something we want to cultivate. Next, there's tracking. So tracking is something you do with your sensing. Once you recognize the energy, you don't just sort of leave it there. You go into it and you begin to track and follow. Where's this arising from? What are the core wounds? What are the past lives? What's involved in this? What are the people or beings who are involved in this? And being able to look at all the components and layers, because we're multidimensional beings. Our issues exist in sort of a multidimensional weave throughout our whole energy system. So if we can clear things at those different levels, like, mental, physical, emotional, in other layers of our energy body, to do with other beings, to do with the soul, then you get a bigger healing as a result. So that's what we're looking for, to clear all the components of an issue. And for that, we need tracking, because issues aren't obvious. People have, for deep core issues, we have suppressed them and pushed them down, and they're unconscious, and they are dark, and they are not that they require more psychic perception of a healer to be able to go in and look at the core of something, particularly if it's very suppressed and buried. You need to develop your tracking actually to quite a decent level to be able to unpick and work out what's going on with someone. So that's a skill we want to learn. The next skill that we're learning is channeling. So channeling energy from the cosmos, channeling energy from the light. We work a lot with the light. So spiritual, divine light from divinity. That's the main energy we're using to do this kind of clearing work. We're not using it, it's using us. So it comes through us as healing. And to do that, we need to kind of get out the way. So learning to surrender is another skill. That's really important for our own personal process, but also for facilitating deeper healing. I need to let my small self fall out the way, and then a bigger healing can come through my system. It can come through what needs to happen can come through, rather than what I think needs to happen. And who's the better healer? Is it me, or is it reality or divinity? It's an obvious answer. Although the more that I develop my own personal healing skills, the more divinity can use me. So it is important you need to develop your capacity for healing. It's not just that divinity is going to do everything and we can sit back. No, we're really engaged. We're learning to work our energy system in a certain way. We may even be doing certain practical things, absolutely, as part of that process. And then that's the best opportunity for divinity to use our system and to come through in a deeper way. So that's part of the art that we're learning. Bridging is another skill. So that's if you can. I was thinking about an analogy for this, and it's like if you're trying to have a conversation with someone and you're in your house or home and the door's shut and they're across the street in their place, their apartment, their home, and their door's shut, and you're not trying to talk to them on the phone. You're just kind of yelling at them through the wall. And it's not a great connection. You need to learn to open the door, to leave, to go to their house, get invited in, and then you can have a good conversation. And that's bridging. It's how can I connect with someone in a non-codependent way. That's what empaths do, is they're connecting in a codependent way unconsciously. I did that. You need to learn to not do that if you don't want to get into sort of an entangled, messy healing dynamic, in that you're cycling up people's energy to your system, you're feeling their pain, it's backing up in you, it's no good. So we want to learn to connect in a clean way where we can actually let the healing more powerfully go into their system. So it's about being able to bridge healing deeper into someone's energy system. So that's a skill we want to learn. We also want to learn clearing, which is, for me, that's a little different than channeling. It's to do with intent and energy and ultimately divinity. So those are the 7 skills. I think I mentioned all of them. Those are the 7 core skills that are the building blocks of what we're teaching. And we'll develop those throughout the course and it enables us to actually work with the different themes. So there are 6 themes on the fundamental course, which are clearing emotional wounding, often very deep core wounding, past lives, clearing up past lives, which a lot of those wounds actually are coming from, releasing other beings. So all of our issues are resonating out into the cosmos with lots of other beings, including humans, and things at sort of other levels, like the astral level. And it's all resonating together and getting entangled. And that's the main kind of thing that we're releasing with other beings. Sometimes, more rarely, you do get more like there has to be certain conditions for it, but there is also something more akin to a being sort of really getting its claws into your system, and that takes a bit more oomph to kick them out. So we also want to learn to do that, and that also will depend on, you know, being able to cultivate enough light and enough enough of the energetics that we want to cultivate to be able to clear and release them. Also ETs, learning to recognize when somebody has a lot of that kind of energy going on. They may have had a lot of ET lifetimes, they may have past lives with ETs that are really still part of what's going on for them. And you also learning to recognize the ET sort of beings which are tremendous healing allies and learning from them. So that's part of that module. Working with the dark force stuff, which is often connected to our deeper, darker past lives, things we've done, certain things, that connections that need to be released, and that side of the work, which we have a process for. That's it's strong work and it's important. Clearing trauma, clearing your own stuff, and then we have a module at the beginning which is about developing those core skills and working with the light, so plugging us into the deeper place where healing is coming from, which is the divine. And the last skill is the last module is working on practitioner skills, so taking everything we've learned and then up leveling us from there, giving us a way to refine and integrate all of those things together. So that's the course in a nutshell. I'm going to answer some questions and then I've got some more things to talk about as well, but let's have a look. So Nels asked, when healing a specific wound, can it happen in increments, like little by little, or is it we completely clear something or not? Yeah, great. Depends how deeply you clear it. If you get a little movement, then it's clearing it in increments. And if you get a big movement, you may get it completely. But that's a higher level skill, basically, to be able to get a very deep thing. And the person has to be more ripe for it. So with some things, it's like you cycle back round to it. It's like, actually, it's going to take more than one session. You know, it's been building not only this lifetime, but many lifetimes, and it needs more healing. So something like a very deep, you can make a massive difference in someone in one session, like that you can change their life. But to get sometimes for very deep things, like, you know, I for example, very deep terror, which has been building up for almost all of your lifetimes. If you've had millions of lifetimes, almost every lifetime has had some degree of survival fear and something like that going on. So it's got a very deep root in the system, and that's going to take more of a process to release completely. But you don't need to clear it completely to be happy and free of it. Just clear enough space that actually your being can live through the rest of what's left without any problems. So you may not be really aware of it if you get a very deep clearing done. So that's the goal. But absolutely, sometimes it can be you get the whole thing. Sometimes it's you get some of it and then you need to wait some time for something to open up. If somebody's repressing stuff, that's typically when you're going to have to cycle back to it. They've they're not willing or ready to face certain aspects of it unconsciously yet. And so you can clear what you can clear, and you can get some of that subconscious stuff, but there may be other things that they actually need to sort of be willing to face before the next big chunk of that can come up from the subconscious. And life is trying to push that stuff up. So life has a process for this. You'll notice that in some periods of your life, it's like suddenly you just get massively triggered out of nowhere, and something you thought you dealt with or that you weren't aware of suddenly bubbles up. And that's life kind of trying to actually dislodge something in your psyche that was a blind spot, so that it can come up and be processed. And that's, this ties into a question someone asked, like, are we going to learn to clear our own stuff? And yes, that's something we learn on the course. But it depends on, firstly, you have to develop the psychic skill of being able to track and clear up things in other people. So that's the first thing. It depends on some of those building blocks. But the most important thing is, it also, as a foundation for actually clearing your stuff, you need to be actually willing to face it and feel it and surrender to it. If you can do both those things, then you can clear it. But you need to be able to do both. And actually, if you can feel it, that usually does most of the process. But if you want to learn to track and clear your stuff, you have to have the feeling piece too. Otherwise, some part of you is subconsciously resisting feeling it, and some other part of you is trying to control it by clearing it. And then it's like you're basically fighting yourself. You're holding on to the issue, so you can't completely clear it. You have to be able to be willing to face it and to let go of it. And then you can also, as an addition to emotionally processing it, you can psychically track it and clear where it's stuck on different levels of your energy system. That's the most powerful approach. Okay, cool. More questions. When it comes to emotional layers, are they predictable like the colors of a rainbow or unique to each person? Great question. And it's a little bit both. It's like every person and situation is completely unique, and there is so much in common that it's like the same. You recognize the same kinds of issues in people, which is why we have this big language about, we can share a lot of, we have a lot in common in terms of those deep places. You can really relate to your friends when they're talking about loss or heartbreak or fear. There's so much in common because we've had millions of lifetimes, and the issues that we've developed through those lifetimes are largely very similar in the psyche of humanity. But there is a uniqueness too. So it's kind of both. Are there scholarship opportunities for this program? I think that in some cases, there may be discounts available for some people. So you can get in touch with the operations manager for the program and ask, but there aren't scholarships in, I don't think quite in the way that you mean. How do we know when our loved ones have crossed over or are contacting us? Well, it's going to be different in person by person, but for a lot of people, it's dreams. For some people, it's that they have a strong feeling of their loved one, and even reminders, like they might be a flower or symbol that reminds them of a strong memory that they've had together, and they just keep showing up, and then it's a reminder of them. And then you can feel that actually they're reaching out to you in these different levels. Okay. Can you share what you've seen with physical health related issues using the Serratore method with clients and animals? Well, for things which have some physical issues are really coming from an emotional place. So long-term emotional stress, emotional issues that have built up and been repressed to the point the person's pushed into the body and then the body's got sick. And those kinds of issues have a lot of, they're not just physical, they're coming from a lot of emotional wounding. And so the Bonnie Serratore method is fantastic for clearing and getting into that wounding. And then their physical health, like the problem is greatly alleviated. It can really help turn things around. But they still may need physical treatment. They still might need to go through, depending on where the physical body is. When it gets really, really sick, it's going to need care on those different levels. But this can take out a lot of the energetic sort of origin of those things, which is often past life, karmic, emotional stuff. those are the really, really big ones. Oh, and sort of ancestral genetic conditioning. So stuff from your family line that's sort of there, that you've kind of inherited, and it's sat there in your body mind. And then it's like a potential for certain things, and then sometimes those express. So yeah, you want to kind of get all of those angles. And I always recommend pursuing all kind of practical physical care as well. So I see this kind of thing as a very powerful complement to something like Western medicine, but it's no good just going, I'm only gonna do energy healing and not go to my doctor. That's not a good recipe. It's better to do both. It's better to do everything and get it on these different layers, like we were talking about, because we're multidimensional beings. There's part of us which is physical, there's lots of us which is non-physical. And if you can get things on each of those layers, you get a much deeper healing effect. On a very deep level, our body's made of consciousness. So if you can clear deeply enough into the system, the body starts really becoming much more functional. But you need to get very deeply into the system to do that. Lots of very deep healing work. But that's what I do. Can you speak more about personal experience in soul recovery and strengthening divine connection with the work you've done? Yeah. How long have we got? So it's such a big question. I might come back to that one because it's something we could talk about for a long time. How can we fill in gaps? How does this fill in gaps for people already practicing energy healing? I've been on the fence for a long time about the program. Cool. Thanks for your message. And really cool questions. So I think this particular kind of training it's an accelerated training that will really accelerate your tracking. That's a huge part of it. Is it just really hypercharges your psychic tracking capacity through the work, through the kind of thing we're going to go through. So if you want to get deeper into the energy system and become more aware of certain things and develop your sensing, that's probably a really big part of the program. And it depends on what you're already practicing and how you're doing it, but there's a directness to this which is quite striking. It's really trying to track directly into issues, directly into consciousness, so that you can recognize past lives, you can see and feel the energy, and you can work with unraveling it. So that's the main thing. You may already be doing that, but this is a sort of an accelerated process for deepening that. The thing which I also really emphasize in the course is basically it's closer to what your first question was, which is about strengthening divine connection. So there's skills which you've already learned as a healer and which I've learned as a healer, which are to do with basically your awareness, your consciousness, your energy, things related to you that you're doing to create change in someone. But the next level is, which you may already be doing, is to recognize that divinity can do something completely beyond what you can do. It can do like miracles. And so how can we align ourselves with that so there's a better possibility of that happening? That's the skill that we're really trying to learn. Bonnie sometimes talks about this as like going direct, but it's about aligning yourself with the divine in a way that it can come through as pure grace, as pure energy and divine power to create a healing that's way beyond what I could do as a person, for example. So that's a skill that we can all learn if you're a healer. And that's actually, for me, that's the real core method. And to do that, we also need to develop our own capacity for healing and our own sensing and tracking so that we're a better vehicle for that divine healing to come through. But it's really, that's where we want to go. That's where we want to go with the art. So that's a big emphasis, as well as the tracking and sensing. It's learning to do that really, because that's, if you can facilitate that, that's it feels like a different kind of healing to anything else really. How much the program is clearing blocks for healers versus learning the material, and why do you think some people perform poorly in learning settings? Fascinating, great questions. Okay, cool. How much of it? I mean, there's a lot of both. they're kind of the same thing. So my perspective is, yeah, basically we address both. Your blocks are your issues. So they're places you're shut down and resisting or avoiding facing certain things. And those are typically your blocks for as a healer. So we do a lot of work on our issues, and we really get into those stuck places in the psyche and facilitate. I do a lot of healing on the people in the course, in the program. That's part of the responsibility of the program, is to help people forward in their process. So that's a big part of the course. And the more that we begin to engage with divinity, the more it starts to play with us. And the way it's playing with us is to wake us up and liberate us and help us where we're really stuck. So it's all kind of, they're very wrapped up together. The more we learn the material, it is about releasing our blocks. They're the same thing, really. So yes, the whole course is both. Why do you think some people perform poorly in learning settings? Sometimes it's to do with core issues like I'm not good enough, or not feeling like you fit in with people. And the funny thing is, almost everyone has that issue, particularly healers. I have those issues, or I had those issues. So that's an aspect of it that can be at play, is those kinds of deep mental emotional issues. And so we work on those particular things as part of the class. The other thing is maybe sometimes down to something like a neurodiversity thing. So I'm very dyslexic, and the way I learn is a little different than some people. And so sometimes actually it's about how your system wants to engage with learning things. For instance, I'm quite intuitive, but I'm quite slow to learn new skills, but I can grasp and perceive something very quickly. So it actually takes me a long time to learn a skill. Like, I've been tracking it in every different area. It usually takes me about 2 years to learn something completely new, and then I can really go for it. But I can grasp it intuitively, particularly if it's something related to something I already have an awareness of. I can just understand it very quickly, because just how my consciousness is kind of structured. So it's different for different people. But I think part of learning anything is learning how you learn. So sometimes people, for instance, I learned really, the classes were a struggle for me when I initially took what's now called the fundamentals course with Bonnie. The classes were a struggle because my tracking I was very shut down, and my tracking wasn't like particularly on. Like, I wouldn't see or perceive anything, and we'd be doing these journeys, and Bonnie would be teaching. I was fascinated, and I was in love with it. I was in love with learning this thing, but I couldn't really perceive anything. And so for me, I needed to go and spend some time in nature and let my energy system open and begin to feel and process my emotional stuff. And then my psychic stuff opened up. So I needed to do something outside of the class that fed back in. And then I started really learning. And the places I learned like a lot were in the pods. So the supervised structured training, as well as the class sort of time we have outside of class, you'll do, I think from month 3 onwards, you do 2 pods outside of class, and then pods in class, which start from the beginning of the course. And that's like doing kind of intimate work in groups of 2 or 3. So healing work, trading on each other with an accelerator like myself or other accelerators who have been training with Bonnie for quite a while, facilitating and guiding you and answering questions and helping you get your awareness into certain things. And that personal learning in a small environment where I was practically doing it and then getting feedback, that's where I really learned a tremendous amount. And that was what I needed. So that's part of the course too, is there's the classes, which some people struggle with class setting stuff. Like it just, it's something about being in a group and feeling like, oh, am I going to be good enough? And everyone seems so much better than me and all that kind of stuff. It can feel like, oh, that's a struggle. But then when you're in those smaller groups with more sort of direct supervision and support, that's often what will unlock some of those things. So that's where we've got all those components together. And then the self-practice too. So I'm going to give you lots of stuff you can work on outside of all of those settings if you wish. And then that might be the key that unlocks things to certain people. And sometimes you just need to hear things in different ways and experience things multiple times. So these core skills I'm talking about, we're going to practice them throughout the whole course. So we're just going to keep coming back to practicing them, but in different forms and applying them to different things. So yeah, it's a sort of circular path. If you ever see in shamanism, sometimes they call it the spiral path. And it's like this idea that your awareness is spiraling out further into the cosmos, becoming more aware of first the land around you, then Gaia, then other beings, then cosmic beings, then divinity. You're going further, and at the same time, the spiral is going inside, deeper and deeper into, through all of your conditioning, your past lives, your childhood stuff, your wounding, into the divine core that's actually beyond any of that. So it's this circular thing. And as part of that spiral, you go back on certain themes multiple times and you see it from different perspectives, different levels. And then that's how you grasp it. So it's a spiral path. It's a circular path. Land-based traditions are circular. Yeah. All right. How can we tell if we're trying to clear and release something that we may need to keep a hold of? You won't be able to clear it if you need it. If you really need it, you won't be able to release it. Are there any skills that we should be proficient in before we start this program? There needs to be a willingness to feel and to face yourself. You have to have a desire to actually want to meet, to be in your own process, to feel your stuff, to be here, even if it's a struggle, even if it's something you don't really want to do. There has to be some kind of willingness, which there is, otherwise you wouldn't be interested. But that's the main skill. The other things like the sensing, those can all be developed. You just have to kind of be willing, which sometimes is it takes a process for that to be there, because so many of us, there can be things like trauma, there can be things like trauma that mean that we're very shut down on some level, and we're not quite sure actually whether we do want to open up. But eventually we realize that it's more painful to stay closed off and contracted and shut down than it is to open to life, even if it means facing certain things inside of us and outside of us, that it's actually better because it brings us into connection with divinity and what we are, and other people. And so once we're there, then we can do this kind of work. Can this be done on someone who is sleeping or incapacitated in some way? You can do it on people that are sleeping. It's slightly different when someone's unconscious, the way that you're not bridging things into their conscious mind anymore. So that's different. And you have to have a degree of permission from them on some level as well. Otherwise, divinity won't do it if it's not appropriate. Once a soul retrieval has been done, do you need to redo it again in the future? If it hasn't been successfully done, then you will need to redo it again in the future. On a certain technical level, you might say, oh, there are different aspects of the soul that need retrieval. It's a very old idea, the idea of soul retrieval. In all shamanic animist cultures, they have this idea that everything has spirits, and actually multiple spirits. And that something like trauma or death can create this kind of separation, and we want to bring those things back together. But it's a way of saying also that some part of yourself has been lost, and to bring it back is to facilitate that process. So if there are more levels to it that you haven't gotten to, then you'll need to redo it. You'll need to do it. You need to clear it more. So when you do a soul retrieval, you don't just bring back the essence soul piece, but you clear up the imprinting from the event that caused it to happen. Typically, it's something like a dying process in a past life, or a trauma, maybe in this life or other lifetimes. And that trauma and shock has created a strong shutting down and contraction somewhere in their system that you need to also unravel and address, as well as bringing back the soul into harmony. Otherwise, you're trying to make it live through something which is still shut down, and then it's not so good. So there are different components to it. Can you reach a point where you're happy with the healing done and can pause or stop healing for a little while? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. And it's ironically, it's not that you need to do a load of clearing to get there. You can get that point to that point now, and that in itself will facilitate massive healing. So it's like, if you can genuinely accept however you are right now, including the things that don't feel okay, or things you'd prefer that you weren't experiencing, if you can genuinely accept them and be open to them being there and don't need to change them, then you're good. And if you can do that, it will facilitate a lot of deep healing around those things, usually, very often. So it's like they come together. It's not like we're trying to chase healing to finally be okay and fix ourselves. Actually, we sort of need to let go of that, because that's, in a very subtle way, that's kind of, that's a resistance. It's trying to control our experience through changing things. We're resisting those things. And that means that we're holding on to them as positions in our psyche, which means that we're actually keeping those issues and things in our life. So if we can open and relax around them, which is a process, and open to letting them go, then actually healing can really happen, can really step into gear. So I think those things are actually the same thing. That's really cool that you're getting the point, and really, really, really happy to hear that. Yeah, that's such a good thing to hear. Cool. Yeah, nice. Are there any other questions that people have? Pop them in the chat. Otherwise, we might start looking at wrapping up in about 10 minutes. And the thing about the course that I also want to mention is that we'll do lots of cool journeys, which I really love. So taking the class into different dimensions, into different places, power places, both in our world and other places. And that's a lot of fun. And it's a fun way of so we teach through the consciousness. So teaching for me has different layers to it, and some of it is, you want to give people a framework, which means you have to give them some information and a bit of a kind of, you communicate some of it verbally and maybe through the handbooks and so on and so forth, but you want them to feel it, so you plug them into the energy directly. So I bridge people into these energy places and get them into the frequency of certain things, into the frequency of the energy that we're working on, so you can really feel and sense it. And then also there's a psychic sort of transmission part of it too. That's part of traditional teaching, is that there's a direct transmission of the thing. And sometimes that happens. So that's part of it. How much time should we expect to spend on the course a week? It's a really good question. When I was doing the course, I would meet up probably for a couple of hours a week to work with people, either in pods or outside of pods. So every week I was practicing with people, and that's because I was really into it. But I think from my perspective, doing some trades and structured pods with people that we build up to, eventually you do want to be doing those, like maybe once a week or every couple of weeks. But definitely you need to be doing some practice with people, learn to apply these healing skills. So the pods will be twice a month outside of class. So it might be an hour and a half where you meet with people, 2 other people and an accelerator to practice the skills. So that'll be twice a month. And then there'll be pods in class as well. And then after you get to a certain point, I'm going to recommend that you do trades with people outside of those pods. Once you've all learned enough of the structure of working with each other that you can do that, and then that would be a point where maybe you're doing stuff once a week or twice a week with people, and that's really cool because it means you're getting a lot of healing but also a lot of experience. On another level, I would be doing, if you had 20 to 30 minutes a day, that would be brilliant to do some of these exercises. There's certain things which develop your tracking and sensing and make your energy stronger, and we'll cover some of those, and those are really good. So it's good to do a little bit of something every day. Doesn't need to be a lot. Could be 20 minutes of stuff would be fantastic. So that's that's optimal for me, is the idea that you do a little bit of something every day rather than like huge amounts of stuff, you know, once a week or twice a week. It's like, actually, this is the self work. So practicing those skills, feeling, sensing, tracking, bridging, channeling, clearing, surrender, in different forms through different exercises. So that's what we want to do. Yeah. So the course begins on the 6th of September. So it's really, really soon. It's amazing. It's almost a week away. And it will be a really cool ride. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Any last questions? It looks like we may be done. Is there a magic key to letting go and letting emotions come through to be cleared? Yes, you're the magic key. You have to sort of recognize how you're keeping the key stuck. How are you holding on to what's there? So when you've got an issue going on, so say you've got like either some anxiety or something that's bothering you really emotionally that you kind of know is there, when you start to firstly just see like how much am I resisting this right now? Like, am I in it a little bit? Am I kind of in my head and like trying to control it? Am I in the feeling itself, kind of letting it move? Just recognize, what's my relationship with this feeling? How far away do I feel from it? Am I in my mind or am I in the feeling? And it's a spectrum. So sometimes you might be really close, sometimes you might be really far. In a healing process, we want to become completely open and present with it. There's no separation between us and what's there. So firstly, recognize how far away from it you feel and how tense you might feel around it. When you start dropping into it, see what begins to come up. Is there tension that starts happening in the body? Is there contraction? Is there like, oh, I can't do this. If I feel this, I'll die. And your mind starts going nuts. Just recognize those things, because those are the things which are keeping you from actually letting this go. Just recognize them and then make friends with them. So drop into that resistance, if we want to call it a word, or control. Let yourself drop into the tension patterns that are there and just let them be there. Don't try and change them. Just drop into the feeling, let the tension be there. And very naturally, it will start to begin to open, and you can drop more into the feeling. It's not a mind thing, it's a deeper thing. And start feeling like, however you're holding it, there's a sense of it's something you're doing on a deep level that you don't recognize, and it's something to do with the feeling of being you. I like this, I don't like this, this has happened to me, this is not fair. There's a lot of I in there, I identity. So keep dropping into that and get your awareness into it, not your mind awareness, but your deeper awareness. And then just keep opening. Eventually, there'll be light and awareness that starts to get into that place, into that identity, into those memories, into those experiences, into that energy, and it will start to become more porous. So what's very contracted may become more light and start, or watery, start to open. Just keep dropping into the core of it, letting go. And then you'll start getting more stuff come up. Suddenly it'll be like, there's pictures, there's images, there's feelings, there's stuff moving. So that's just kind of getting deeper into the process of how it's stuck in you, and just keep surrendering, getting out the way. Don't get caught up in the visuals, the images, the feelings. Keep dropping into the feeling, but as surrender. And then if you like, just follow that process. Just keep following it. And now and then you can try being in it and just offering yourself to divinity, offering as your whole being, including that place where you're stuck, to the divine. Just sort of offer all of yourself as an openness, as a surrender. And then the divine is going to start playing with you and pulling you deeper into love. And that will start opening the issue even more. And once you're really cooking in there, that's, stuff will really start moving. And the magic is that it's already there. The divinity is just waiting as all of this light and grace, just like a hair's breadth away from you in your sort of issues and suffering and contraction. It's like a secret inside. Here's the magic key: inside of the issue or the wound, where you're kind of shut down, where all these layers of past lives, where all these emotions, things are, whatever it is, inside of it is pure divine light and awareness and love. If you go deeply enough into it, you'll just find light. That's the magic. If you can begin just to keep being willing to go into it, that divinity will start coming back the other side, reaching towards you. And then grace will very often start unraveling things that seem very stuck. And it's divinity is magic. So divinity is magic by aligning with the divine, by being present. And we're actually the divine. We just don't know it. We're asleep. But another way of saying the magic key is awareness or presence, or honesty or willingness. Just being really willing to face something, or present with it, or open, getting our awareness into it. That's the magic. And magic's what we are. Yeah, cool. I'm not sure if I'm ready to be a healer. I'm mostly wanting to heal so I can be happy. Is that still a good thing? Should I move towards taking the program? So some people do take the program just for their own process. But it may just be that if your process is that you're actually still doing a lot of, I think just email me privately with that one, because we've talked a bit before, so I know where you are with your process, and my advice will be a bit more specific for you. Yeah. Cool. All right, I think we're done. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for all your questions. Yeah, and you're welcome to email me, chris@bonnieserratore.com, with any kind of further questions about the course. And it's a pleasure to hang out, and good luck with your healing process, if you're in the middle of a healing process. And look forward to seeing some of you next weekend. That'll be really, really, really cool, and lovely to hang out. Take care.